My name's Jenny Hoffman, and I work for a small environmental nonprofit called EcoAdapt. There are about 8 of us, and we are all climate change adaptation all the time. One of EcoAdapt's big goals is to demystify climate change adaptation. Adaptation isn't rocket science. It's not some magical, mysterious thing that only super specialists can do. It's ordinary people doing ordinary things, adding one little tweak to their thinking about space and time a little bit differently than they have been. We found as we were doing more workshops, doing more presentations, talking to people about it more, what got the most response was when we'd say, well, here's an example of someone doing climate change adaptation. They're doing restoration, and they said, gosh, what plants should we use? Not the plants that did well here 10 years ago, but what's going to do well here in 20 years? And people are like, oh, that's not wild and crazy. I can think through this. So we want to go in there and work with people who are doing marine conservation work and say, what are your goals? How are you trying to achieve them? How is climate change going to affect your ability to meet your goals? And so we're working with everyone from federal and provincial state governments down to tribes and First Nations up and down the coast from Alaska down into California.
My name is John Bones. I live in Victoria, British Columbia. I'm the Marine Planning Coordinator for the Nanwakolas Council. In our work in developing marine spatial plans for our member First Nations, we had been struggling with the issue of climate change as it affects the ocean. We brought in EcoAdapt to speak to our leadership to give us a better understanding of what kind of strategies we ought to be building into our marine spatial plans to anticipate these changes and be better prepared for them. The First Nations, they have strong feelings about maintaining as much of their cultural identity through ocean interrelationships as possible. So the collaboration that we have and that we're fostering with these other groups for us is extremely important in coming up with an intelligent and proactive spatial plan for our member nations.
To make adaptation happen, you want to start with where people are. What are you doing? How do we build climate change into that? Several of us at EcoAdapt have been instrumental in moving the field more towards this context-first approach. Science matters, but context also matters. It's like if you live in an earthquake zone, you plan for earthquakes. If you live in a hurricane zone, you plan for hurricanes. If you live in a climate change zone, which is to say if you live on planet Earth, you plan for climate change. So the Moore Foundation has been instrumental both for EcoAdapt as an organization and for the field of adaptation as a whole, and their grant allowed us to pull together all of these adaptation stories that are now out there when people look for case studies. I guess one of my big hopes for the future is just that climate change will eventually get integrated into everything people do. It will become sort of run-of-the-mill. It's just about looking at the world around you, understanding it, thinking about it. We're all experts on our place, on our priorities, on our communities. And that expertise is just as important as the climate change science for making adaptation work in the long run.